Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith and Candelaria Thompson. Rogan Smith, you exhausted? Had a long day?
Always long days on Mondays and Thursdays.
well, so on Tuesday you're tired by this time as well?
It depends on what's on my plate. Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, man, long weekend. Well, it seemed like a long weekend, but went and saw the big Elton John. That was interesting. Good show. Very organized.
Still got it?
Yeah, he was. Actually, it was probably one of the best concerts I've ever been to. Yeah, very solid. Yeah. What else is new on your plate, on your side?
Nothing much.
Mm-hmm.
Not really.
You see,
Same old.
See, we got another Jean Roni thing. Is that how you pronounce his name? Jean Roni?
I think that's how I pronounce it.
Yeah. So the question would be is how does it repeat itself? Was it something that occurred at the same time? Or was it something that occurred post that case?
Do you want to explain for the audience?
I was just going to say, explain the story.
I thought most people knew about Jean Roni.
Well, the headline, because I don't read the newspaper.
Jean Roni was an individual who was born in the Bahamas, and there was 6, 7 months ago, 8 months ago, he was caught up in, what do you call those things?
Not a raid, but like
a roundup.
Roundup exercise.
A roundup exercise. Yeah, and he was deported. He had said he was Bahamian, but he didn't have any ID. And I suppose because he had a Haitian-sounding name, I'm only making that assumption. They said, it was in a shanty town. That's what it was. And when they did the shanty town extrication or whatever you call it, and he was deported to Haiti, and as a result, he got his lawyer, who managed to essentially win the case for him to come back, and more recently, of course, he's applying for citizenship. I think that the court had stated, as a result of this, that you can't do that anymore. That if someone says, I'm Bahamian, you can't just deport them.
Right.
You have to take the measures to find out, are they Bahamian or not? Okay, were they born here? They have a right to because you can't just take someone off the street and say.
Yeah, and it's sad that the court even had to say that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You shouldn't be able to do that.
It's like, we have a thing in this town. I don't know about in the States. You have like in the insurance business or if you get stopped, you have X amount of time
to present your documents.
Right. Which, by the way, I don't know if that's in the States. If you don't have that driver's license and thing on you,
yeah, you got to go to the station.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah?
No.
They carry that.
Yeah, I mean, you're supposed to, but no.
Yeah. But so certainly immigration status, if someone says, my name happens to sound like a French-sounding name, and I don't have any ID on me, the next move shouldn't be detention.
And put him up to the detention center.
And then deportation.
Yeah.
There should be some, let me go get my documents, let me call my mommy, let me, get a birth certificate. If I say I have a birth certificate, give me, what is a reasonable period of time? 2 weeks?
That happened to a Bahamian journalist, too,
Here?
Oh, yes, who I used to work with. He was apprehended and put in the detention center, and I mean...
And he had a Bahamian sounding name?
He had a Bahamian name, and
Like Fock, is it?
I don't want to call it. I mean,
well, let me just say, a regular,
like
Smith.
Yeah, I mean,
So where was he?
Well known.
Well, where was he? I
don't remember where he was, but they took him and put him in the detention center. He said, "I'm Bahamian. I am Bahamian. I'm telling you. Check the paper.
No, I know what the problem
is,
Rogan.
Check the whatever.
No, I know what the problem was.
What's the problem?
He said am, right?
He's a journalist. I would hope that he'd say I.
He didn't say I is? Eyes Bahamian. Eyes, like plural, like I can see. Eyes Bahamian.
Eyes Bahamian.
But you can't just, somebody is, I would imagine if somebody is not Bahamian, then they're going to be claiming that they're Bahamian. Even if there's a chance that happens, everybody ain't going to say, oh, we're all Bahamian.
Well, the thing is, too, people will do things, but to actually claim citizenship that you can't prove, or born that you can't prove, you're not going to say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is also, what I want to find out about this, and I haven't fully dove into it, is was this chap sent at the same time when they just discovered him, or did this happen after the court ruling? Which I'll have to read and find out, and I'll do that in the break. But I mean, it was deported on October 27. That's last week.
That's the old paper you're reading from.
That's the weekend.
This November 23rd. Yeah, this is the weekend.
The weekend.
But what I'm saying is, I'm just looking at the fact that it said he was deported on October 27th.
Mm-hmm.
That's like last week, 2 weeks ago. Last month.
Yeah.
But this Jean Rony was dealt with. There shouldn't be any more deportations post Rony.
Mm-hmm.
I always want to say Rice Rony. But the thing is, so why would that happen?
I don't know.
Did someone go like, let's try it again, see if we could get it by? Or?
They're probably not even aware of the ruling. And you laugh, but that's true. They're probably not even aware of the ruling.
Ruling? What ruling?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just, and again, you know what's sad also? Whoever did the order, because someone did the order, they're invisible. There's no name saying like so-and-so did the order. If it was like you're talking about the process and stuff in the States, right? It would be Lieutenant so-and-so did the order. It's just an order. We don't know. So that probably will get off, as my man say, Scots free.
Well, who's your man who says that?
Mr. Alexander Thompson. By the way, I got to tell you something off the air that I was targeted for, but I'll tell you off the air. So, so that's interesting, and it'll be and one thing he can just have a precedent. He doesn't have to go through the whole thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But do you think someone should be held accountable for that?
Absolutely. How could someone not
in
be?
which way, like fired?
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely. We need to stop playing around here. You had a whole. This was dragged through the news for months.
Can you say that again?
It was dragged through the news.
No, we need to. To stop playing around here.
We need to stop playing around.
Yeah, no, seriously.
No, yeah. There's just no excuse.
I don't want people to dismiss it because he's of Haitian descent.
In the same way that you said to me, I should explain what we're going on, and I agree. There is very few people who don't know about this, and certainly no one at immigration.
Yeah, they don't know clearly.
Rony?
We should copy
Rony
that
who?
And get that on top of
He's up to macaroni. Macaroni.
Anyway. So listen, I wanted to so much in the news today, right? Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk about we didn't get a chance to chat about that march that occurred last week, but even beyond the march, I wanted to get your take, and Ken, you can weigh in too on Frederick McAlpine's comments today in today's paper. Saying he's been accused of being basically a traitor to the FNM because he took part in that march, and he says, I put country first always, and I'm not a hypocrite. I'm still a member of the FNM. I still love the party. I still, subscribe to its tenets, but I can't in good conscience not protest with these people when we were on the other side.
Right.
We protested against some of these things, the VAT increase, all the, these different things. And so I wanted to, this is the first time I think in a long time, and I've always kind of looked at Mr. McAlpine as a bit of an opportunist. I'm not going to lie. But I'm in full agreement with him on this one. Absolute agreement with him. While I don't believe that you can be so vocal about your organization and expect to remain in good standing with that organization. I work for Sunshine Insurance. If I came on the air or if I went outside and protested against Sunshine Insurance.
You think you have a job when you get back?
A job?
In the same way that I'm sure.
Show up the next morning.
I'm sure that Mr. Wilson would support your democratic right to do that.
Not as an employee.
No. Listen. He'd support your democratic right to do that, and then he would exercise his democratic right
to fire you. Exactly.
So my thing on this is very simple. If you remember now, Dr. Minnis said in this march, people have a right to protest. Mm-hmm. So you have a right to protest. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that I have a right to say, oh, I think you're a wonderful person because you're protesting against me. No, you have a right to protest.
Yes.
And I have a right to act how I feel in the same way that Mr. Wilson has a right. Because at the end of the day, he has a boss, right? Forget about the government and the thing. In a pure sense, he is a member of a group. Okay, so I fully support his right to protest, but then he also has to prepare for the consequences. He's not going to be welcomed with loving arms.
Agreed.
So,
agreed. My focus is just on the fact that I do appreciate what he's doing.
Yeah.
There will be consequences, but I'm sure he knows that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't quite like when you hear the rumblings from people in the party, but he's a traitor or whatever. Because to me, I don't view that as him being a traitor. I think, for the party, it might feel like it's out of line because they certainly don't want anybody in their ranks taking to the picket lines and protest against them. But at the same time, he's doing what he's always done, which is stand up for our cause.
If you say, and again, I'm going exactly along your line of thought. If you say that you're going to go and protest against Sunshine Insurance, they will view you, whether you like the label or not, as a traitor. That's maybe a harsh word. Maybe it's not, it sounds like, anti-patriotic or something like that. They're talking in terms of that organization, right? Not in terms of the country.
If Sunshine Insurance did something, this is kind of hard to do it because we're not talking about when
in your opinion.
When the politician was on the other side. If Sunshine Insurance once held a position, okay, and it was contrary to somebody else's position, and then now they're in that position, and I say, you know what, the same position we held before I was in agreement with, and that still stands to this day.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Except in an organization, sorry to interrupt, Candy, in an organization, forget about the party, they believe that there is a code. It's like the police force. What they call it, the blue code or the whatever. That the police stick together or the lawyers stick together. They believe that. Now I'm not.
That's a problem.
That is a problem. But the thing is, when you have organizations, they believe that when you're dealing with certain things, there's some things that you deal internally. There's some things you do externally. Now he has every right. I will stand up and I will march in his support of him getting a right to do that. But then, if the party says, "Oh well, listen, I know you say you're an F&M, but guess what? We say you're not." And when you
when
I say you say you're not, I mean when you say you're not, I mean like when the next time come around.
Well, yeah.
You would be getting a nomination.
It's the manner in which he did it. Like, there was no need for him. I mean, he was pretty kind of aggressive, while he was out there. That's a little much.
Yeah,
I mean, it's one thing to
I'm not supporting that.
It's one thing to you could support his
principles.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, the manner in which it's a way that you do it.
Yeah, you're right. I think I support the principle more so than his execution of whatever transpired down there. But it's just the principle.
But
I
do agree with you, like in terms of being so like party like.
That's the problem with this country right now. And
that's why we're so stagnant.
All parties.
Yeah, but we talk about this one right now.
Well, no, I'm just saying when you're dealing with partisan, what do you call it? What's that word they use? Almost tribal or
you talk about it all the time about tribalism. Because my party support, I keep quiet. And you know what I've learned too, dealing with politicians, a lot of them try to make changes. And we've had people sit in this very studio and said that they try to have conversations ad nauseum inside their organization, and they get frustrated and they either say, I'm not going to say anything, I'm just going to leave, or others just get frustrated and they say, I'm going to talk about it.
It is the nature, if you recall, almost in our first 3 or 4 months of doing this show, we talked about the issue of democracy. And I wrote a lengthy blog on it. I even actually had been invited to speak to a Rotary Club on it. And the one thing that was the underpinning of the whole thing was that people who started constitutions, in the United States specifically, did not contemplate parties because they knew, or they predicted, that precisely this would happen. The party would become bigger than the country or the cause, and that's what has happened. So this is what you do. You join one of those things. That's the risk you take.
I wanted to take another angle to this story though. So with the protesters, and it's one thing coming out and trying to hold the government accountable, but we always forget that we have a personal responsibility as citizens, right? So after the protests, this might seem small, but as I drove through downtown, why I see the placards all over the place, like all on the ground, just left.
Yeah.
And it's like, in order
Maybe
for
we should
you,
have a march against that.
no, you want to hold your government accountable, but you don't
Yeah.
want to accept good citizens. You don't want to be a responsible citizen.
There's hypocrisy
Come
to
on.
be shared all over. There's
Be
ample
exactly
doses of
like
hypocrisy.
don't come out there and protest and then leave your stuff for
No, I don't
the
agree with
people
that.
to
You know how I feel about trash.
and I
so-
can't stand that, man.
No.
Like you
Take
know,
your things
so that
back.
was I wanted to talk about that too because I was disgusted by it. Like you come here to protest for a good cause.
Yeah.
Okay, you hold your government accountable, but be a good citizen too.
Yeah. I have no objection.
It takes two.
You
It
won't get
takes a
any
good
objection
government, good governance, and good and a good
Just
citizen.
be a decent citizen, right?
Decent
Absolutely.
man. Pick up your stuff.
Yep.
We got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Yeah. Are you gonna address that?
No, sir. No, sir. That's stupid into the cesspool.
No,
So,
it's
so
it's
I'm
like
not
how
doing
you
it.
handle
I'm not handling it anyway. That's it.
Okay.
I see this thing with the swine flu. What is the swine flu? We going back in a cycle now. So we had a whole series of flus. Your H1N1, your bird, your SARS, your chikungunya, your Zika, your dengue. Now we back to the swine.
Swine.
How you get that? From swines?
Listen, I'm so it's so much stuff it's so scary.
But then, also, you have to take these things in context, right?
Hmm?
You have to take these things in context because they'll say, probably a lot of people might get the swine flu. It's a flu. And then a person dies, but that person could have had other
situations
and
going
it's like
on,
one.
other factors that contributed to.
Because you don't even hear about what happened to Zika. They just ended it. It just.
I guess they got it under control.
We're not Zikaing anymore.
But do all of these things still exist?
Of course. We just don't have the issue, I guess.
I meant
But yeah, man.
I heard of one in India, man. Where
Everything goes down in India.
The bats eat this certain kind of palm, date, or whatever, and then they excrete. And because of how people either eat that sort of thing or people get it and then they do die. All kind of action. There's a lot of action happening in what you call in India.
Yeah.
And do these things exist in the United States?
Well, I don't think they have the bats.
Not the bat. What you mean?
No, these certain
No, I know, but
rats
I'm
are-
talking about all of these things. Like I always feel well, I don't feel, but people say, well, child, they testing these things on,
On the third world?
they put things out there to.
It does seem that a lot of these happen in your what I would call your jungle environments.
I'm sorry, I feel like,
But you have to understand something. Animals and human beings coexisted in the wild what do you call it? I don't like to use this word uncivilized, in less developed environments for many, many years, right? And people probably died, and that was kind of like a natural culling.
Yeah.
And so exactly, you know what they say about India? India used to be one of the most advanced countries scientifically, mathematically, all those things in the world, right? They're thousands of years old. And they had things under control. Things were under control. And then the British came in and introduced penicillin and things like that, sanitation. And as a result, no one died. So the population just because no one was dying, as opposed to which candle could have done. Oh, okay. So so all of these things, you wonder if they used to have the plague. Bubonic and the black plague. It was never the white plague. The black plague.
Everything bad is black.
Yeah, okay. And so millions of people died.
Wow.
Yeah.
And kind of kept, but then y'all start washing your hand. Okay?
They say you build up a good immunity when you're dirty,
That's the point.
Yeah.
Now y'all washing your hand. Now everyone got everything got the
Don't
peanuts.
get on the weekend.
Healthy immune system.
I am very
That
strong.
would make sense why I always say.
I didn't know one single child
stay
as I was growing up. I did not know one single person who was allergic to peanuts. Not one.
Okay.
Maybe in your generation
No, yes,
you would.
we've become very
Okay, not one. Now maybe they were allergic and I didn't know.
Germophobic.
You probably didn't know.
And
Okay.
we have a lot of more. Like people are sickly. Like people get sick a lot.
So now I go on the plane. They announce, listen, we have a very allergic child on the thing. If you have peanuts, don't even open them up.
Really?
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
even. That's what they
'Cause
said.
the
Don't
dust,
even open it
all
up.
kinds of things.
I was like, well, why don't you carry some Benadryl around with you? You know, now you want my peanut.
I know. So I was at soccer practice this weekend, and a friend of mine had this carton of mixed nuts and stuff. And I was like, right, and I made some comment. She's like, oh my God, does somebody have peanut allergies? And I'm like, no, calm down. But it's so real. Like no matter where you go, like it's
Now they're saying that they can reverse these allergies by slow introduction of the nut. You know, like if you eat small amounts, you might get a little uncomfortable, but it won't, and then you
Right.
build up a. I know what you're thinking.
it's an
What?
About the nuts. Were
I
you
was
thinking about the
I was
nuts?
laughing at
Oh, okay.
I was laughing at Kendrick laughing at the thing.
At the thing. There's two things. Kendrick laughing at the thing. But yeah, so that's all that's going
See
on.
where your mind went?
Yeah, that's my mind.
You saw this story about Reynard
I
Henfield,
was,
right?
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
just gonna say I
jeez.
wanted to talk about that.
Go ahead.
No, you introduce it.
Because my angle isn't really from what transpired.
Right.
Because I read it all, and
Uh-huh.
there seems to be different accounts by people who were inside that restaurant saying it wasn't as extreme as it was detailed. I don't know because I wasn't there. But my concern was mostly beyond that. The point he made in the article about trying to reach someone on 911
Yes.
and not being able to get through.
Well, I hope you call
That was the
919 and
angle.
not 911.
Well, you could call
You can
911
call
and
it.
it'll
Oh,
do
okay.
the same thing.
Okay.
And I know
Like-
this because I was telling Candy before the show started, I said, I can totally relate to what Reynard was talking about because I remember several years ago, I was on Go Slow Bend and some tourists were knocked off of their scooter. It looked like husband and wife or whatever.
You told me about this too.
And I pulled over. I was calling 911, calling 911. It's like just calling. The phone rang like forever. And I eventually called the police station. They told me, no, just call 911. And I'm like, I can't get through to 911. I can't. So help. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just was thinking if that were a case where someone was shot or was like something super extreme. I mean, it's what kind of nation are we in?
And that's fine. That's fairly extreme. If you ask me, just
What?
there's someone running in with a cutlass, wielding gang.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
Like,
And I'm
just
saying in that
something
moment when I was
simple,
with with those tourists.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
never had to. Thank you goodness. I've never had to call.
919.
And so when I read that,
Yeah, but
I
I've
was
called. But I've
mortified.
called 911. I'll be honest. I'm gonna only be honest. I've called 919 and I've never really had a problem. Now
Well,
I'm not.
that's
But that
fine.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Once is all that you need.
Yeah.
Right.
You know. But
I've
I've
called
called 919 and I've gotten usually gotten
That's,
a response.
that's
We should
like-
call it now just to check it out.
Oh gee.
Give it a call. Check
You
it out.
can call it from your phone because I don't call it from your
Yeah, we'll
phone.
call it from here, from the thing.
Oh,
Ken.
what y'all can say?
Oh, what you can say
I
when
just
they-
want to say.
Okay,
the
call-
line's
because you
working?
can't just call.
No.
Because that's a false alarm thing. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if
Yeah,
you
even
can
if you
get
just
through.
want to say
you can get
different,
through.
I just want to call to say you guys are doing a great job. If they don't answer, it's not a big deal, right?
Boy, part of me
It's-
wants
We used to
call
do.
you.
No, we used to do
I'm
that all the time.
mortified.
I used to do that all the
wouldn't.
time on the thing.
Don't encourage the kids.
No. No, but we're not.
They
You know.
ain't picking-
But no,
they ain't
it's
picking up
different.
now.
It's a
No.
difference between calling
That's
919
crazy.
and essentially, saying sorry, just was checking to see if this number was working, as
Right.
opposed to saying, oh, let me tell you about this thing that happened on the road and it isn't.
Yeah.
That's a different thing.
Yeah.
Okay. In fact, I think I'm going to look it up before we do it. We're probably allowed to check to see if it's working, as long as we're not. It doesn't take anything off of them.
I mean, you would.
You know?
I mean, I think you ought to now.
We just want to see if it's working.
Okay, we
Suppose
do it?
it may working. Yeah.
Let's see.
Rogue Gadsden is calling out,
Oh goodness.
and I have it up.
Okay, sorry. Just checking to see y'all working. Thanks.
But you
There you go.
right on.
There you go. No, I'm
the
telling
fir-
you,
that's the
I have
first.
called 919 on several occasions in the course of my life. Thus far, I have not had an issue. That doesn't
You're
mean
very lucky.
anything because people obviously have
Yeah.
issues, And it could be also the time of the day,
And it,
which is still no excuse. Like if there's when he went to get the pizza, that was one of them times, where a lot of
was a
crimes.
Friday.
Friday, but still you got to have multiple lines.
You have to.
Yeah, so.
That whole situation is.
But that was
just
like one ringy
horrifying.
dingy, as Lily Tomlin would say.
That reminded me of you remember the couple of months ago in New York, the young boy, Junior?
Yes, Junior.
Who the gang
Who was killed.
chased and killed
And they called 919?
in the store.
911?
And no, I'm just the whole
that
situation to
situation,
begin
yeah,
with. I
yeah.
mean, like,
Well,
what are we doing?
Listen,
And young
I
boys
try to
with that.
again, you know me, I really try to put things, like for instance, I was coming over the bridge today, and I got here. I left the office route about 5:14, something like that. And I got here in time, and I'm saying, how we contextualize things, right? The reality is 5 o'clock is a rush hour.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? There was no big traffic jam, but there's some spots in this town where because it's bad management.
Yeah.
But we and it's 886, the 886 in Miami. Okay?
Oh.
That's some traffic jam action there.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, we'll be right back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Our guest this afternoon, by the way, is going to be our former leader of the DNA, Mr. Brian McCartney, also former Minister of Immigration under the FNM. We'll talk to him about his views as to, are people justified in their anger? Are people impatient? Do people have unrealistic expectations? What is it? I mean, I think, Candy, about the BPL power bill, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The reality is, okay, we don't control the cost of oil.
Right.
And the cost of oil is what directly impacts our power. Now, obviously, we need a new power plant that doesn't use oil.
Exactly.
But how, just out of interest, let's say you call Rogan Smith Construction to go build a power plant. How long would that take? It certainly ain't going to take a week. Even if you did that today. Okay.
But even exploring other alternatives.
Well,
why build the same thing?
Well, no, this is LNG. The thing that they're building is going to be LNG. But the point I'm making is there's not. Anyway, we'll talk about it when we do it. But you know what I'm saying, right? There's got to be a rational approach to solutions as opposed to emotional only. But I think it also has to do with, on the side of the people, having the right information, and not just road shows are one thing, but you've got to just get that. You got to be. I understand it. I think I understand. I'm pretty. We've had people on the show. I think we understand it, and so you get a really clear picture as to what the deal is.
Maybe they don't. They still don't. Maybe
but the people don't, right?
Yeah, maybe that needs to be said a million times so they can understand
right.
it. Saying it once or twice, and sometimes even in a blitz. Nobody's listening to radio show after radio show after radio show to get the explanation. So it has to keep. The company has to keep,
right. And
then
there's the reality that people sometimes they just get to the end of their patience and they don't really care what you're saying. You can tell them anything.
Because once they're paying that exorbitant bill, there's nothing you can say.
And they look, you're looking for someone to blame, but you can't really go call your boy, what do you name? Mohammed Shink, what the boy name? MS, who you name? The fellow who killed Khashoggi. The fellow who killed
you're talking about the
Saudi crown prince,
yeah.
You can't really go blame him. Why are you raising the price of oil? You can't do no protest off him because you know what he'll do. He called you into the embassy.
Yep. I can't even laugh. That story was so hard. We didn't even discuss that story on this show, but that's for another time.
Just some serious thing. You sent some people with a bone sore.
Come on.
You got some intentions, man.
Come on, man. That story. Oh my God.
But you see, let me tell you, and we've discussed this before. When you have that kind of money, and that kind of power, you cannot imagine the level of money these people with oil have. Mm-hmm. And my brother, you are insignificant.
Yeah.
Just deal with him.
This man was going to get married to his girlfriend.
Kill them both.
And then had a decoy to leave after they already killed him.
They did an impersonator.
They had an impersonator. This is
you're
crazy.
Insignificant. You're fly to be swatted away. Their thing is they need their jet for their falcons.
Did you see? This is the last thing I can say. Did you see when the prince shook that? How do you pronounce his name? Khashoggi,
yeah.
Yeah, Khashoggi.
Yeah.
They have the pronunciation, the proper pronunciation. But there was a photo that was taken of Khashoggi's son shaking reluctantly. You could see it, like shaking the crown prince's hand.
Well, he's in Saudi.
I suppose.
So But we have to also now. We were almost through the show without talking about our man.
Oh, you're talking about.
And you can say your man. I know.
You talking about with the border situation?
No, Trump. About Khashoggi face.
Oh, okay.
Because when the CIA said, quote, there is evidence that the Crown Prince directed
his people to kill him. Khashoggi.
My man. Trump say, well, it is what it is.
At first he's saying he don't even believe it.
Yeah, he said maybe it isn't. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Then he says, well, it is what it is. What you want me to do? You want high oil prices?
It's crazy.
Now, I always go back to our thing. If Bam Bam would say that. They would have put a bone saw on him.
I just wish you'd just get, let's
That's
stop
right.
the whole oil.
January, we wait until January. We get some entertainment in January coming up. Pelosi and them.
I'm not. I don't keep up with that stuff. You get off on that stuff.
I get off on that. It's only so many things I can get off on that.
No, well, so anyway, before you brought up what's his name?
Khashoggi.
I can't even pronounce his name.
Khashoggi. Yeah.
We were talking. I've been so exhausted.
Just say the Saudi journalist. Go ahead.
Who was that?
That's your phone ringing.
Oh, my mummy.
Yeah.
Mummy, you can't talk right now.
Yeah.
No, so.
Your
talking
ring
about
is flash.
I know, and I can't turn it off. Like I did this.
Do it.
What's that?
I
had this feature from my previous phone, and it carried over.
I had to go online to see how to turn it off.
Yeah. Anyway, it brings so much attention to my phone. So anyway, and I lost my train of thought already.
Yeah.
Because you brought,
flash,
you brought attention to the phone. So anyway, just talking about. We were talking about emotional intelligence a couple of weeks ago, and I keep bringing it up, all right? And in terms of, I'm so exhausted now. When you become so aware of just, socially aware, and you're able to better, self-manage yourself and kind of, not only deal with your awareness of your feelings and emotions and things happening around you, but you can also sense other people's. Existing day to day becomes exhausting, especially for dealing with those who have zero awareness, and that is like.
So you mean the
prevalent?
You mean this?
Yeah.
You mean this?
The
look?
No, seriously.
You know the look, right?
Yeah.
The blank look. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, the blank look, or even the defensiveness, conversations that you try to navigate through with people on a daily basis. Like it's almost like you might as well just stay unaware. You know what I mean? Like, let's just row and have it out and then hang up.
So opposed
to it takes more energy.
So you and I now have been working together for many, many years.
Yes.
How long, madam, have I been talking to you about this very same thing?
I know now. See, now I know you wanted to, put implement EI into schools.
Yeah.
And that.
But I'm just talking about this whole challenge of dealing with things that don't make sense. Like when you're when you're having an exchange with someone, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to be patient. I understand that. But you are saying A, B, C, but they done gone to G.
But it's not only but you're trying to keep your own composure.
Right,
you're trying to, navigate through something smoothly and make sure that you understand, I understand, and, trying to get other people to understand is, is a feat all in itself.
It's challenging.
But it's like, and then, reading these headlines and things like that, it's just.
It's a daily challenge.
Please, guys, Emotional Intelligence 2.0. I can't remember the authors' names. I don't have it. It's in an introductory into emotional intelligence. I wish I could sprinkle this all over the island so that it'll be just contagious and everybody will get it.
I want to do it with the water. We got to go. We got to go. Our guest is Bram McCartney. Candy, thank you. We'll see you next week, and we'll talk some more about it. It's a lot to talk about in that subject. Trust me. And we got to get some people on who are expert in it as well to see what you can do. Who
we got to identify? Yeah. If you, if you
we'll
do
find
know.
some people. Yeah. All right. Listen. Thank you. Coming up next is Mr. Bram McCartney, and we'll be right back. biblical people now. Our guest this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, is the bearded Bran McCartney.
Bran.
Bran McCartney. What did I say? I said Bran.
I agree with you.
Okay, I was like, did I say a wrong word?
McCartney.
The bearded Bran McCartney. And, of course, he joins the bearded Ken
He looks
Williams
so
and the
different.
bearded Ed Fields.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's so funny because in a certain period of time, right, prior to, say, the 20s or whatever, everyone had a beard. No one had no
Beards are
razor.
nice.
You had no Gillette or no Schick.
Well, they weren't using that.
They were
using
like the straight edge.
Yeah.
But that was like a big move. You know, you go in and you sit back and hopefully someone didn't slit your throat. But that was the style. That was the style, man.
Yeah.
But now we're back to that. Well, listen, Bran McCartney, speaking of back to that. Oh, okay. I have a similar shirt, by the way.
You do?
I just looked down to see if I had it on today because that's where I am now. I can't even remember what shirt I have on. I got to look. Former leader of the DNA. There's a whole lot to talk about, man. You know. Let's talk about having,
You got a
you know,
Snicker?
to
Got a Snicker bar?
today, yeah. And what you call it, the button, the Staples button, the easy button.
That was easy.
So you are now obviously retired from that particular position. When you look back on that journey would have started what, 2012? 2012, basically.
11.
About
Yeah, 11, 12. Yeah.
2012 election. And you look back on that. How do you summarize that whole 10-year period? 12 to 7, 5-year period, I guess. 5-year period. How do you summarize that?
You know, it is, I would say it's something that I would do over again.
I was going to ask if you had any regrets.
I would do over again, especially during the circumstances that led to that. There's certainly no regrets, and you know, I sleep comfortably at night, knowing that we tried to do what was best and what was in the interest of the Bahamas. Not successful, but that's part of it.
You know, one of the things when I look back in the 2000. And I think I said this to you maybe on email or something. When I look back into 2000, when was Gore? When was Gore, Al Gore? That would have been, what, 2004, 2000, something like that?
2004.
There was a gentleman named Ralph Nader.
Yeah.
And if you look at the votes, and by the way, Ralph Nader, if you really want to research this guy, has done hundreds and thousands of, you know, really critical change agent type stuff in the United States. But he wanted to be president as well. He thought he could make a change there. But when you look at the number of votes that he was able to get from the Green Party, which you would think is more left-leaning, right? In the Florida election alone, it would have been enough to put Al Gore over the top. And, you know, history has a way of just kind of one thing leads to another, right? And I've always felt that Al Gore... Well, that the history of the United States will show that Ralph Nader created a kind of a shift that led to one thing and another. Do you feel that the DNA, when you look at, say, people's view of what happened between 2012 2017, when there was a lot of angst, that would have been less so if the DNA had not, you know, been a factor?
What would have been less so?
Well,
what exactly?
You know, would the trajectory have been different if that had not happened?
The outcome of the
outcome of the
2017 or
2012.
2012.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I've been asked that question many times, and a lot of people.
I'm sure I'm not the first.
No, a lot of people said, you know, if the DNA were not there, the AFNA may have won. I don't know. I think it's very difficult to tell. The DNA was made up of FNMs, PLPs. We had supporters from all sides. So it's very difficult to tell. And
not assuming that the FNM would have done any better, but I mean, that's, you know, it's just one path versus another.
It could have
right?
gone anyway, but it's. I mean, there's no scientific way to say that because of the DNA, the FNM won. The FNM was on a downward spiral, very much so, and it does. It's difficult to tell.
No, it's
difficult to tell.
It's an academic question.
Yeah.
But if you look at the numbers, I mean, some people have done the analysis and look at constituency by constituency and seeing where. And I don't think that there was enough to make a change in governments per se, but it certainly may have made a more challenged. It wouldn't have been lopsided. So if you look at constituency by constituency, did the DNA make the difference in votes? But that's academic. Rogan,
I was going to say, Mr. McCartney, you got a lot of flack from people who thought when you announced that the DNA's formation, they felt, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Just spent a little bit of time inside the Free National Movement, had his disagreement with the then leader, and now he feels as if he can branch on out and have this party and it's going to be effective. What was your train of thought at that time? What was the catalyst that led to the DNA? And you say you've had no regrets. Well, let me ask you those first. I don't want to pile too many questions. But what was your train of thought at that time, and what was the catalyst that led to that formation?
Well, initially, I had stepped down as a cabinet minister in the FNM, and I was still an FNM. I became a backbencher.
Yep.
And there was the issue of the BTC sale.
Yeah, of course.
That was when I resigned from the FNM. And I became an independent in the House of Assembly for a little while. And the formation of the DNA was not only Brian McCartney. It was a number of other people, about 13 in particular. And so it wasn't my way of thinking, contrary to popular belief. It wasn't only my way of thinking as to what can I do. It was what can we do to try and make a change. I said, the country was going in the wrong direction. Quite frankly, the FNM was looking like the PLP.
That's how you felt?
Yes, I was an FNM for many years, for 20-something years. I campaigned for the FNM. I was an attorney for the FNM.
Looking like a PLP in which regard?
Their actions, their way of politics. So that wasn't the FNM that I knew. As a matter of fact, I was in the FNM longer than the leader was in the FNM.
He was drafted in '92.
Yeah. So, but the bottom line is, it was not going in that right direction. There were a number of things that transpired, and so we wanted as a group to get together and see if we can form this party that would give the Bahamian people an option, because you had the PLP and you had the FNM, and we were in a particular position as a country that wasn't good, and it's still not good. And we wanted to give the Bahamian people another option. And that's what we did.
The success that third parties had at the time, I mean,
The
a lot of people would.
good.
The history isn't good. The numbers aren't good.
And still isn't good.
Yeah, and still isn't, unfortunately.
Batting zero.
So I mean.
Well, no, the FNM was a third party at one time.
Well,
Well, yeah, but they never
to an
won.
extent.
They never won an election as a third party. They had you had your BDPs, your SDPs, your free. You had
No.
all sorts of them,
They
right?
they never won it as a
third party. No.
No, they never won it as a third party. But they were a third party that became the government. But you're right. There's no doubt about it. But because it hasn't been done before, for me, that's not going to stop me or those who started the DNA from at least putting it forward. And as a result, we knew the odds were against us, but in life, from my profession, odds were against me. From business, odds have been against me in a number of different things. But if I had said, well, the odds are against me, and because the odds are against you, not do it, I would not have been a lawyer who's been at the bar for 28 years now. I certainly would not have been involved in several businesses that I'm involved in now because I was told you can't do it or the odds aren't there.
But when you're doing that, though, you're taking a risk in your own dimension, so to speak, right? Yeah. If Roganne Smith wants to be a journalist and decides I'm going to drop everything and go and be a journalist, she's the one who suffers the consequences.
Right.
When you're dealing with a thing like a third party or and which everyone has a right to do, are you not now dealing with risks in a greater sense?
Absolutely.
So the question is, and is there, when you're looking at this stuff, would there be a lesser of two evils from a party perspective? Mm-hmm. And again, this kind of backsides, going back to that initial argument, does it create a scenario where maybe the worst of the two evils, in your perspective, it could be the better,
right,
maybe end up with the spoils?
Well, again, you would not know that until you've been there and done it. I don't like settling for the worst of two evils in anything. And, look at where we are as a country today. This is a disgrace, quite frankly. This country. Mm-hmm. This country is a disgrace. I've traveled all around the world. And when we look at where we are and where we could be, we should hold our heads in shame. And, it's not the politicians, It's the Bahamian people's fault because they keep on going back and forth and determining, well, look here, man, I can't do this because they've never been there or we ain't going to try something new and so on and so forth. It's an abusive woman's relationship where they love me. They love me, but they keep on doing it again, doing it again.
Ask you, I have a different premise on it, and I agree with you. We are dominated by government in this country, but what we see as government is the politician.
Right.
Now, you've been a cabinet minister, you've been an MP, and we've had other MPs here, so I want to ask you the same question. Do we have, because of a process of 40 years of not addressing it, a defunct public administration, a dysfunctional public administration that unfortunately we have somehow been socialized to believe that we can run to the minister or run to the MP.
Yeah.
But you know what? Guess what? Guess where the MP have to run to? The public administration.
Right.
We've had, I would call him not a on your side type of guy, Fred Mitchell, here in the seat saying public administration. We've had Ryan Pinder in the seat saying public administration. We've had other MPs. We've tried everything on the politician side. Do we now need to focus on public administration? And is that such I use the word and I don't like to repeat it, but behemoth, that we can't tackle it, so we skirt around it and we don't address it?
We need to address it, and we need to address it directly. I think a lot of the problems that politicians would have is they want to get back in, or they want to keep their seat, or they want to be given the nomination again. Mm-hmm. So they would do what has normally been done. For instance, with regards to when persons run to their MP, as opposed to, listen, the MP is not your daddy, the MP is not your mommy, the MP is there to represent the constituency, help build policy and in the constituency and that sort of thing. But many of them, when they get in, they succumb to that sort of thing. And but that was started from the administration. That was started from the UBP time, when the UBP would have the sack of flour and rice and stuff like that and say, come to your politician, let me give you this. Remember now.
One politician today said he used to build the house up to Bell Course after the election, put the roof on.
Yeah. So remember.
If I knew they got a roof.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, but we again, what I said earlier, a lot of what we're going through now is because of our mindset.
We want.
Yeah, our mindsets, baby. People, we want to go to the politician and say, listen, man, or or there's I have a funeral in the family. Can you sponsor it? Sponsor. Or listen, man. Let me tell you. I'll tell you no lie. And I sat down one day when I was in government, and I made a list of all the calls I got for people who wanted certain things, and it tallied close to $50,000 in that one day. Not that I gave it,
50 G's.
Because they were asking medical.
They don't need important places.
They were asking for medical assistance. They were asking for tuition for college, right? They were asking for fuel. So in one day, and I took it home. I said, look at this. Can you imagine?
You took it home.
I took it home. I should.
You should do 50 G's every day. You'd have been straight. You'd have been.
I wouldn't. I don't know.
They take your money and go. But Brian McCartney, we have gone through a scenario where I think this country, right, has lived in a kind of la-la land for so long that we allowed the little drip to happen. And before you look, the roof comes crashing in,
right,
and it's a torrent. What do you call it? A flood, right?
Yep.
Now, which politician, including Brian McCartney, is going to go on the campaign trail and say, you know what? Day one, when I get in, we can revamp this whole public service. Who's going to do that? Who's saying that?
Well,
but if you don't say it and you do it, right?
No.
Well,
again,
okay.
I mean, from a political point of view, it wouldn't be wise to say something like that.
That's what I'm saying.
Because you will get you'll get as much votes as the DNA, but it was last election. But the thing is, you do it.
Yeah.
And you ought to have that type of leadership or that mindset that, listen, man, I'm going to do as much as possible to fix things, even if I don't win the next election. I'm going to fix it so that this country is better off.
Now, is the system so polluted that when you do that, when you try to do that, so I'm going to throw something at you, and it doesn't matter about the party. Could someone be doing that and trying to do that, and while they're trying to do that, they are being so undermined that actually the opposite impression is given that nothing is being done because they don't want anything to be done? I believe that the civil service controls this country.
You're going to be undermined, especially if you try to do things that's going to change the system where certain persons benefit. Right. You're going to be undermined. But, you have to be strong enough to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And you also have to be wise enough to know that you're going to be undermined. But let me make sure I have my PR team as well to show what I'm doing. And like you said, you're not calling any parties, but I could probably understand what you're talking about. But at the end of the day, those persons need to make sure people know what they're doing, why they're doing it, and this is perhaps the end result that we're trying to get.
You don't recall this. Well, you do, of course, but I'll see if you do. I came to your office once. I don't think I came to your office many times, but I came to your office once, and you were in your office as Minister of Immigration. And I remember you saying to me, I don't think I can do this again. Do you recall that meeting? You probably had so many meetings. You don't recall that.
I must.
You probably said that a million times. Anyway, I'm not going to do this again. And why I wanted to kind of put that on the plate. You worked in a department that is known for its complexities.
Yeah.
Is that a diplomatic way of saying it?
It's very diplomatic.
Okay. All right.
I can tell you some stories.
Yeah. Now, you knew. Listen, immigration is where you work. It's a very simple thing, Rogan applies for a work permit, for permanent residence, for a work. What is it? A right to live, to reside.
Yeah.
A right to reside with a right to work. It's only about 4 things. It's 4 things. It's like you go to McDonald's, they only have
couple options.
Yeah. Fries, it ain't like, we get it. And it ain't one of them where, special orders, a little special order.
Right.
Boom, boom, boom. Mm-hmm. You apply, you put it in. Okay. You have a list, a checklist of things that are required. Mm-hmm. It ain't like you don't know what you need.
Right.
They tell you on the form what you need.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You put that in with all the things they say they need. Staple, picture, and you got your pay, and you get your receipt.
Right.
Which means you've complied with all that is required.
Right.
Yet it is the hardest thing to get one of these things on a timely basis. Even a no answer.
Yeah.
Okay? Just to get a no.
I know. I'm experiencing that now.
Why?
Well, when I was there, that had changed for a moment. The period of time I was there, we had changed that. I had made it almost a policy that if you apply for a work permit for the first time, accepting that everything is in order, it shouldn't take more than a month, if that. And if you are applying for a renewal and everything is in order, it shouldn't take more than 2 weeks. Right. Because I had that experience prior to going into immigration, which I am now experiencing now. Now can't get nothing from there. But we got that down. Why? I really don't know. But when I went there, we had persons working around the clock to bring down that backlog, and we brought it down. I used to personally sit on the board every week to hear these matters, and because I know the frustration out there, and I know what people were going through.
So it was just a matter of not having sufficient staff, because you talked about the backlog.
I think it's a matter of organization. It's a matter of management, and it's a matter of course, like anything else, being on persons to get the job done. This is not rocket science, as you said.
It's
certainly not rocket.
Cook the fries. See, if I go into the place, right, and I order fries, I don't need no one fumbling around like with the fries.
Take it out the bag, put it in.
I can listen. Tomorrow I can go to any fast food thing on the planet and do the fries. I don't see how they do that. Get the bag, put that in the basket, dip that down, wait for the buzzer, shake it out, throw it in salt, boom.
Yeah, I was very cognizant of that concern going in there, and try to reach that goal where if you waited more than 1 month, I would have been completely frustrated to hear that, and more than 2 weeks for renewal.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to ask you when we come back, why is it that our people, especially, and again, I'm going to the civil service, I got to do it, I think they control this country, are so non-empathetic with the plight of their fellow Bahamian citizens. We'll be right back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith. We got Brian McCartney in the house, former leader of the DNA. And, we're not going to get into the typical stuff. I want to, because everyone's heard it, a million times, right?
I like getting into the typical stuff
Well,
sometimes.
yeah, but, and you're free to do that. I mean, I have no problem.
Yeah.
I want to talk about things that you experienced and how, see, Brian McCartney, I'm under the impression, and I'm sure you've seen it in your life, where a lot of times the problem isn't solved because we're not tackling the problem. It's all the superficial stuff. Again, I'm going to repeat it again, not repetitious. I am convinced in this country that we think the solution is, to your defense, a savior like a Brian McCartney. When we did We the People ran to that and said they wanted it to become they believe that there's a savior that rests in the hands of politicians. My view is we have not really examined the problem, and that's the public service. Now, one of the things that seems incongruent to me with regard to how it works is this. The public service is there to serve the public. Yes. See, you got to revise it around.
Right.
Okay, and then you got the answer.
Right.
Okay? But yet, when you go there seems to be a complete lack of understanding and a complete lack of empathy for their fellow Bahamian as to why they have to be put through this rope.
Yeah.
Not for a month, not for, 6 months. I just finished dealing with an issue that took 18 years. That enveloped someone. You wonder why people are angry.
Yeah.
How do we dig out of that?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. It's it's not a savior, but you need proper leadership.
Right.
and the system needs to change, the public system, and that starts with the general orders that we have. The general orders allow this type of behavior. I'll give you they allow it, and I believe that the public service ought to be held at a higher standard than the private sector.
Agreed.
Because
we should be going to the public sector for expertise.
Because the private sector would have to go to the public service to get things done, so they should be at a higher level. But because of the general orders that we have and that we've had enshrined in our system for years, man, you could come to work late. You make sure you get your 21 days sick days, whether you're sick or not. You don't have to do necessary work because you can't get fired, quote unquote. I'll give you a quick example.
Yes, take your time. Take your time,
when I was at immigration, I was in cabinet one day, and the prime minister had asked for something for a file. So I'd called down to my office and I'd asked my assistant.
Can I get the file?
I said, listen, I need the file. She said, I go on my lunch break or something like that. I said, look here then, let me tell you, the prime minister needs a file. All right? Well, she went on her lunch break. And I had to get someone else to get the file.
And you couldn't do nothing.
No, I couldn't do nothing for the prime minister, right?
Yeah.
So I went back.
They're in control of Jack.
I went back to the office, right? And I said, listen, when she came back, I told the permanent secretary, I said, I don't want her in my office anymore.
Right.
And this was your assistant?
Yeah, my assistant. I said, you need to fire her. I said, if this were any place else, she would have been fired.
Yeah.
If this is my personal business, she would have been fired.
Yeah.
So I thought they fired her.
Hey, they hired her.
Listen, so they moved her, right, to the passport office, right, because all this fell under foreign affairs. She moved to the passport office. I thought she was fired. A couple months later, my passport need assistant, right? Next thing I go to the passport office. I got to deal with this woman who I thought. The point is, right? The point is that's one of the problems.
But you see,
people believe
need to understand this stuff. Brian McCarthy.
Yeah.
They don't understand this stuff.
So that type of attitude remains in the system.
You can't touch
if
me.
It's not me,
Right.
if it's not me as the minister, it'll be some other minister, some other director they not working for, because I got to go on my lunch break, because my lunch break is from 1 to 2, and you can stop that even if the prime minister call. So it's that type of thing. It's that type of thing that stagnates the system and causes us to be where we are today.
I'm used to this, right?
What's that?
I'm not used to this, right?
No, but you don't understand.
That's not my reality.
I am trying to get people in this country, okay? I am on a mission to get people in this country to understand why when they see something ain't working, why it isn't working. See, look, Rogan Smith, you in charge. Let's say you in charge of Sunshine Insurance, okay?
Yeah.
All right, now, I want my policy. So I know you in charge, you're the president. So I call you up, and I say, look, man, I down by road traffic. I need the road traffic certificate.
Right.
So you use my friend. So you say, no, don't worry, no. So you call. Can I call a name of some of our friends on there? Yeah. You call Nishka.
There you go.
You call Nish.
You remember her well.
Yeah, that's my gal. You call Nish and say, look, print the road traffic certificate. Ed, my friend, I in charge of the company. Ed, my friend, want the road traffic certificate. No, I ain't getting that. I gotta go.
Oh, really? Now?
I go into where your boy name? The chef, Gyros.
Tropical Gyros.
I get a Tropical Gyro. Okay. Now, when you get back from wherever you are, Rotary or whatever, Nish gone.
Nish gone. Nish didn't even say that.
And Nish gone. And when you go back 2 months later, and you need to get, say, claims, you have a claim, you ain't gonna run into Nish.
No, you're not.
That's what. And Brad, how much do people get that in this country?
Well, that's why I go back to the fact that it's two sides. It's the changing the system, but you need the leadership to have the will to change it.
How do
You
we
know?
as a population, because let's face it, politicians work with what they see as the momentum, right? The wave.
All right.
So if there's no pressure on them to make that change, the change isn't made. There are tons of us who are outside of the sector, who are impacted by the sector.
Yep.
Shouldn't we be?
Most of
This
us
goes to your point about why are we not making that demand, or are we just interested in our own little selfish thing? So once we get that fixed, we finish.
Well, we.
See, when you get
As
your
you know,
things,
as you know,
you ain't gonna lobby
yeah.
for the whole thing. You just got
But
your thing.
as you
straight.
know, we complain a lot as Bahamians, and we get frustrated. But the reality is, when it's time to do something, or time to try and make a change, or a time to stand up and stand out, they go crawling to go watch Netflix or something, you know.
I used to always say way back, and when we used to be on the morning show, Fred Mitchell, again, one of your counterparts, would, if I recall, I don't know if I remember this correctly. Roganne would remember, she was in news. We want to invade Haiti. You remember there was a proposition to invade Haiti? You remember that?
To invade
Mr.
Haiti?
Mitchell, Mr. Mitchell, yeah, Mr. Mitchell said we should. Back then, he said we should invade Haiti.
Yeah.
Now my thing was fine, but you better walk in, if you're the general, walk in backwards, because when you turn around, you're there by yourself.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And they have all
exactly.
kinds of excuses like, listen, I come in, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
listen,
yeah.
I got to stop by, take them fights, then
Yeah.
I come into the war.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay?
No.
But the thing is, we're not. See what you did. If I could contextualize it with your permission, is really the highest form of advocacy. When you started the party and tried to do it for the purpose of making change.
Yeah.
We're not advocates, are we? Generally.
No, unfortunately, we're not. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier. We are the reason we are where we are. And if we were to speak out, stand up, the politicians would take note, and then they would lead in the right manner. For instance, we say we want to make sure that the public service is in order. We want to make sure that crime is under control. We want to ensure that doing business in this country is easy and not convoluted and frustrating. I heard you talk a bit about the electricity and all that stuff. Well, we want to make sure that dump doesn't burn, but more so, let's make sure we use solar, wind, the current, and the waste to generate.
Well, how do we if we know now, if we determine that this is the basis of all problems, because we talk about education, we talk about this, but if we know that the basis is the fact it's our inadequacy with regard to advocacy, that's the heart of it, right? How do we then, Brian McCartney, get people to move in recognition of that? Or are we just have we evolved to be so selfish that we're just concerned about our little thing? I mean, it's big to us, but we're concerned about our little thing, and then we move away. Once we get the permit, we finish. We straight.
I think the problem there is it's going to be very difficult for people to recognize that, because although we're talking about it and we agree, the majority of persons out there don't. They don't agree that this is what they ought to do. Their understanding is that it should only be my little application is what matters, and not seeing the bigger picture that, look, if your application is successful, or it should not be the only one that matters, because there are other persons that makes this merry-go-round go round.
And you might have to come around and do it again.
And
you probably have to do it again.
So it's that, but it also falls down to education and the public being educated, and that is where we are lacking, unfortunately. We see things, and I go back to the political realm. We see things as to coming down to the elections, who could have the best parties, who got more of the shirts to give out, and that sort of thing, as opposed to even looking at what the parties may have to offer.
Right. They're not
So,
substance in the issue.
but the same thing applies with regards to the system.
So is our system so? I've always put forward that our system doesn't lend to change. So, for instance, let's just say we have an electorate of what, 180,000 people?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's say, for the sake of argument, 30,000 or so of them are directly impacted by civil service reform.
Mm-hmm.
Are we so structured that even if you wanted to get 100,000 people understanding your plight, or not your plight, but our plight,
Right.
that even that 100,000, the way that the electoral lines are drawn, etc., it doesn't matter. They're so distributed amongst the constituencies. You see what I'm saying? How do we? Do you get what I'm saying? If not, I'll try to.
No, I got you in terms of how it's divided among the different constituencies and what have you. But again, it also goes down. I keep on going back to leadership. You got to take the bull by the horn, quite frankly. Once you win that election, and you have to make the necessary changes, and you have to be very deliberate about it. You can't just pussyfoot around and say, well, I don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. Because, quite frankly, you're not in politics for all your life.
Hopefully
you're coming out someday, and then you're going to have to be dealing with this.
Right.
So you need to have that mindset as a leader to say, look, man, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to fix it early. I'm going to get it done. A lot of people wouldn't like it initially, but at the end of the day, it's going to benefit all.
As a third party, knowing the odds against you, i.e., chances are this ain't gonna work out.
Right.
Especially the second time around, you kind of get a little taste of the real thing,
Big
right?
taste.
What? A big taste, right?
Big taste.
And so you say, all right, I can try it again. Would you now, in retrospect, go out there and say to those of us who are impacted by the civil service, which are the majority of people, would it have been more prudent to just go direct and say what you're going to do in that type of regard and how that'll impact lives, as opposed to the whole, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do. Would that have had any kind of, because you ain't got nothing to lose. What you had
They
to
have
lose?
an election to lose.
Well, the chances ain't looking good that way.
No,
or
but
that
you
way.
don't want to kill what
you
chances
don't.
they
Yeah,
have.
you wouldn't want to. You
Nobody's
wouldn't
in
want
there.
to. You certainly don't want. You didn't want to do anything that would have. If you didn't have to say anything that would be detrimental to your politics, and why say it? But I tried to say it. Sorry, I tried to say it indirectly. By look here, we are going to fix things to the best of our ability within the shortest period of time, within the 5-year period that we have, even if it means losing the next election, which was trying to say we want to do what is good, we want to do what is right. Listen, man, I didn't get into politics because I like politics,
I don't think anyone likes it.
Yes. Of course. I didn't get it. I got into politics simply because I wanted to see what I wanted to see a better country, and that was it. It was nothing personal in terms of trying to gain power or get money. That was far from it. I lost money as a result of getting into politics, a hell of a lot. As a matter of fact, when I was when I represented Bamboo Town, everything I made as a minister, everything I made as a minister.
You're doing 50 G's a day. You couldn't keep up.
Everything I made as a minister and MP went into my constituency by programs, doing programs, having programs such as our Brothers Keeper program, where we were feeding those who were less fortunate, programs for the children, that sort of thing, and
no regrets.
No regrets, none at all.
Yeah.
None at all.
None
at all.
And not completely gone either.
Never say never in politics. I've learned that.
But listen, let me
Never
tell
say
you,
never.
the one thing you can do when you say you sleep at night is to say this. I think the worst thing is to
I
say
snore at night.
You didn't put your best foot forward. That's the main thing. Listen, Brian McCartney, I hope you come back.
Well, thank you for the invite. I was most pleased to have gotten a call.
Yeah, we try. I think it's important. You got to drill it, right?
Yeah.
You got to drill it, and maybe some people will catch on, and maybe there'll be some young, energetic, enlightened leader out there who tunes in and takes that charge.
Yeah.
Becomes a sacrificial lamb once again.
Oh boy.
You know about that. All right. Twice at the altar. All right. Listen, Brad McCartney, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rogan Smith.
Thank you.
And Ken, we'll see you on Thursday.
Yes.
Thank you.